Okay, this is a video from Egyptologist 7 that she put out about a year ago, almost a year ago to the day now. And it was a major Afrocentric upset. What this was is a burial site in El Kurru, Upper Nubian, Sudan area that we call today the Sudan. And the DNA that they'd been able to pull out of these, this new way that they do this, and these peteous bones in the head and things like that they found that contain DNA, and they can really get this back out of people, teeth, things like that. We're lucky that so many of these bodies are well preserved. But in this video here, I was a little bit confused, and I still am somewhat to the ideal. For in a couple of her videos, she's shown that they show in the current Nubian population that they have admix and everything, and then also they've developed a Caucasian phenotype in Nubians. And you can easily see that in the people that live in Ethiopia today. That's not who the Ethiopians used to be of the Greeks and so on, but that's for later in the video. I'll mention that again. But also people that are like the Somalians and so on, and you can see a phenotype that's been imparted on them. And she's made a series of videos pretty much surrounding this whole area, all of East Africa, Central, and all across North Africa, basically proving the endemic people that were there and when it happened, and what genetics is taken to another level and proving over and above archaeological worrying about cranial sizes and things and whether they have a nasal slit like this or not. No, DNA comes and steps up to the plate and pushes it to another mark. Here she starts out with Nubians have a dynamic history with their Egyptian neighbors to the north, trade, conquest, as well as 3,000 years of on-off colonialism, all which no doubt has contributed to their genetic profiles. Well, the question that I have is this site right here. I wonder if we're looking at Kushites or we're supposedly looking at what we call Nubians today. Now, Nob or Nub is the Egyptian word for gold, and they knew from elder times that they had gotten gold from out in the area that is, but also there was another area up near the delta on the other side of the Nile, on the east side, where they had called that Nub also. But apparently the little vein of gold that they had run its course, but they still had Nubia. Now the Nubians, though they have a dynamic history, we also kind of know that history. In the earliest dynasties, they're mentioned that they get into a fight with them. They found as evidence of this, and it's called Nubian Colony A, and basically it was disintegrated and gone. They don't see it again. They don't see anybody that they could call Nubian Colony B, but Nubian Colony C now shows up later. So A, and then over 400 years later, like the 5th dynasty or so on, they would show up again. But there's decrees that where they're not even allowed into Egypt, and they have to stay past Icon and so on. And that's later echoed in the Semna Stelae of Sensuret III, and actually in both of his steles that it has for up in that other. It's a border stele that they have. One is 8th year of his reign, the other 16th. So I wonder if we're already seeing these bodies here as being some type of mulatto-type integration with them, or if actually what we're seeing the Kushites, because there's that. Now, that's not really the purpose of me doing this, for it has a twofold aspect for what I've been talking about with the Cro-Magnons and the people that came out of that and their haplogroups that we found recently, and that it still exists today. And we're going to look into that more here, but she's going to point out genetics that they found in the area. So there's a few different studies involved in this, and I've slowed it down to be able to catch it a little bit better. This is from the University of Zurich, and this is the paper that they have used here and peer-reviewed, Tübingen, and she is utilizing it. medieval Nubian populations. Now, when we say medieval, we're talking about AD. So even at that point, understand that timeline that we're going with here. But I'm going to correlate this with other things and other sites in here in a minute too. Mitochondrial DNA, that's DNA from the mother, called mtDNA. Data provides valuable insight into the ancestry of past populations and serves as a primary resource for migration and population history reconstruction. It's a lot easier to get than the yDNA too, and then therefore we've gotten more samples of it for sure. But in the same thing, we know which ones now are males and females of certain haplogroups and what's associated with them, and so it's not too big of a deal. Maybe 15 years ago we'd have had a little bit of an issue, but in the modern time here, they've got it pretty much lined out, and they know which one comes from what and derived out of it and so on, and they can find that genetics too, and they can even go back and look and say, well, that integration and change happened about here and about here, and this other thing happened about here. Just subtle changes where things line up in the DNA of people that they're seeing, and they're like, okay, it takes a step right here. Some of my old videos I talked about this situation, but it's going to tell you this study piloted by a aDNA analysis on 20 skeletal samples, teeth and the petrious portion of the temporal bones from the medieval Christian site of El Kurru, 900 to 1450 in the Common Era. So definitely medieval, if you will, 900 AD to 1450 AD. Not the time of finding of Americas. And if we look at these, it's listing them here that they've gone through a couple of them in 2014 and 2015, 2014 and 2015, and then a majority in 2016 working on the site, and a few of them were unknown, but then the others are male or female. They can tell the ages of them and all this information, and then they took these and they ran genetic analysis on all of these. Genetic data was retrieved for 5 individuals. These were classed into HV haplogroup, H, K, U, and R haplogroups. Well, none of those are black people. Those are really all Middle Eastern or ancient Middle Eastern and current European ones. Isn't that odd? Well, she's going to use a little cross-reference data and a few others papers and make correlating data with that. So, previous genetic investigation of the ancient Egyptian population at Abu Sir el-Malik resembles the developing profile of these Nubians. And so, looking at the 5 that they have here, H1B, H2A, K1, U2, and H2. So 3 that are H, a K, and a U. You're following me, right? Let's continue. Those are the samples. 202, 206, 210, 212, 216. So they aren't consecutives, but they're ones they were able to get it out of. Now if we look at the first one, mitochondrial haplogroup H is a predominantly European haplogroup that originated outside of Europe before the last glacial maximum, so before 22,000 BC. In fact, they tell you it is first expanded in the northern Near East and southern Caucasus mountain range between 33,000 and 26,000 years ago, and later migrations from the Iberia or Iberian Peninsula suggest it reached Europe before the last glacial maximum. It has also spread to Siberia and Inner Asia. Today, in about 40% of all mitochondrial lineages in Europe are classified as Haplogroup H and its constituents. Now, these are people that are living up in the Nubian area. Towards the end, we're going to end up finding a map on it, and you'll see that it's far past even that Icon trading place we talked about. And it seems to have been perhaps the Kushites, for it's real close to Meroe, which is named after Persian Cambyses' sister. So, subhaplogroup H1b, or H1, sub of H, is associated with the Magdalenian expansion from southwest Europe 13,000 years ago. This is from high-resolution MD evidence from the late glacial resettlement of Europe from an Iberian refugium. Back in 2005, H1 likewise has been found among Libyan Tuareg people, 61%. That's from a paper in 2010 in a study. H1b itself is primarily in Eastern European, Central Asian, and North Asia. What? Yeah, well, Caucasians, if you look up Caucasian race, it's going to show you everything. And what we're talking about is derived Cro-Magnons into a modern age, but they don't even use that term anymore because once they found their haplogroups and things, and they did tests on them, they found, oh, they're still all alive today. So we're just going to call it early European modern humans. So there's sample 202. Now 206, they'll tell you here that H2's age and derive is between 8,900 and 12,200 years ago. So this is after the Younger Dryas event. They figured this out in 2012. H2 is common in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus region. There are hints it may have dispersed from Western Europe. What? Haplogroup K, this is the third one, is believed to have originated in the Middle Upper Paleolithic time between 30 and 22,000 years ago. The mitochondrial lineage U8 reveals a Paleolithic settlement in the Basque Country, and this is in Spain, in between Spain and France, what we call today, Basque Country. K has been found in the remains of 3 individuals from PPN, or pre-pottery Neolithic B site of the Tel Ramad in Syria in 6000 BC. What? So we're finding where these were attached to. Again, I have to applaud something like this because people have been arguing for 30, 50 years more now on pottery and where things come from and who went to who. And even though the skull looks the same, you can't, whenever they take and go off in DNA, they were like, no, they're not even closely related. They're exactly related. They are closely related. They're a derivative. This happened here, that happened there. Nope, they're the same people. No, they're not at all the same people. They can easily figure these things out. We're not going off of conjecture and pottery shards. K was also discovered in early farmers of Central Europe. That'd be Cro-Mags too, dated around 5500 BC to 5300 BC. That's ancient DNA from the first European farmers in 7,500-year-old Neolithic sites in 2005. K has also been observed among ancient Egyptian mummies at Abu Sir el-Melek, Middle Egypt, which date from the pre-Ptolemaic late New Kingdom and Roman periods. In fact, through that time and period, and this was just in 2017. Wow, that's just so bright. See if I can get that to come out of that. Doesn't want to dim at all. Anyhow, this was found in those skeletons that they were able to derive the DNA out of well until they didn't get any contamination because of the way they had done it from Avocermelech. And this is from the Middle Kingdom all the way through, and they were expecting to see all kinds of changes. There were two things they well noted out through this, because they thought they'd see Persian ingression, then Greek, then Roman and stuff. No, they didn't. They didn't see that. It looks like a continuity just goes all through it. But then also they note that sub-Saharan DNA comes in at the very, very end of that, after the Roman periods they find, and surely not at all really at the first of it, so in comparison. So we get that idea, but anyhow, K is from out here in the Middle East, a female Amorite tomb owner at 2650 BC at Turka, the Middle Euphrates, Syria, belongs to K. This would have been like your Assyrians, Amorites they talked about in the Bible, people that are in the Tigris and Euphrates. That's from 2010. But check it out, guys. You know Ötzi, the Iceman that they found frozen, up in the Alps type area, and they found tattoos on him and all that. Well, he belongs to the K1 subclad. He was so well preserved it was fairly easy to get his complete mitochondrial genome sequence from the Tyrolean Iceman. They did this back in 2008. But he's also a derivative of K, working through this time. Now, he had tattoos. Proto-Indo-Europeans had tattoos. Who else had tattoos? Well, pre-dynastic Egyptians. The ginger, the blonde-haired, pale leucoderm that they found, that's the natural mummy before they even started doing any mummies. Yep, that guy right there, he's got tattoos. And then the two other burials that they found with them that weren't as well preserved naturally still showed other tattoos. They're able to pick it up with certain kind of light. I did a video about it. Also, the Libyans on the Egyptians' walls generally showed them as having tattoos. Late Neolithic, 3000 BC remains at Kaif el Beroud in Morocco belong to K1. This is from ancient genomes from North Africa, evidence of prehistoric migrations to the Maghreb from both the Levant and Europe. What? Right. Pay attention. K1 is observed at Kulbarthi, Sudan, 550 to 800 AD. What? Yeah, so we were talking that the other study we were going off is 900 to 1450. Here we have something that's way before that even, and they still had this situation. Haplogroup K1C's age is dated genetically to somewhere between 7,500 and 20,300 years ago. So I'm telling you, they find out in genetics and they'll see this thing and that and then derivative out of it, and they go, well, it changed right in here. Where's your person that changed the very first one? Well, look, we're not going to find that. But what we do know is that here it is.